Hi, this is Laura, president of the Jessamine County Beekeepers Club.
Welcome to Buzz Across the Bluegrass.
Guys, welcome back to second episode of Buzz Across the Bluegrass. It's an honor to be here once again with Teresa. Also Kent Williams. Wow. I've only been in the beekeeping world, for 2 or 3 years, but I've admired you from day one, just about. So it truly, really, honestly is an honor. I know you're a busy man. So Teresa and I, we understand we're very blessed to have you with us this evening. I know there's quite a few of us that know who you are, kind of your background, but for those that may be a little bit newer to who we are and what we do and kind of the beekeeping industry or community here in Kentucky, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been keeping bees for 35 plus years. I don't really remember exactly, maybe 35, 36, 37 years. I think I started around 1989 or possibly 1990, but grew up on a typical farm here in West Kentucky, still live on the same farm. It's a family farm, and just a small farm, and bees took the place of some of the other livestock and some of the other crops that we used to grow, that when the market disappeared for small farmers, for tobacco and for hogs, we needed something, and turned out that bees were a very good fit for us. It took about 5 years before we actually were able to incorporate the beekeeping part of our farm business into a substantial percentage of our income. But like I said, it took about 5 years, maybe a couple, maybe 7. I'm not really for sure. But by 1995, we were depending on bees for at least 1/3 of our farm income, and at present, the bees are probably 95% of our farm income. So
Wow.
that's I guess maybe if I had any message for uh, beekeepers that aspired to make bees pay for themselves, is that if you do everything right and are a good manager and a good marketer, if all of those things line up, you can make a pretty good living with honeybees. But all of those things have to line up.
I understand you're also EAS certified beekeeper.
Yeah, yes, sir. I'm a EAS certified master beekeeper. I became a master beekeeper in 2003, and I mean, I appreciate that. As far as uh, an accomplishment, but it don't keep my bees alive. It don't make me a living, and it don't keep my bees alive. It's just an acknowledgement of what a person knows, what a beekeeper knows, and how they can apply that to beekeeping. And I tell people that I scored really well on the exam. It was a 4-part exam and very comprehensive, and I scored really well on it. But there's so many different directions that a beekeeping exam could go, that on any other day with any other set of questions, I may not have got half of them right. It just happened that on that particular exam, that particular day, I happen to know most of the answers. So I became a master beekeeper, EAS master beekeeper, and I appreciate, I appreciate that it's kind of an honor, but still, I'm just a beekeeper. I'm no, like I said, that may help a little bit in keeping my bees alive, because you got to know a lot of things to get that certification. But when things go wrong, things go wrong, and you have to learn to handle that emotional hit. Bees don't. My bees don't care that I'm a master beekeeper. Some of them still try to kill me every time I get into the hive. So, there's that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kent, I can tell you why I admire you and why I'm drawn to you. But you are, I think, one of the most respected and valued beekeepers, businessman, mentor, certainly in Kentucky, but worldwide, certainly all across the United States. What do you think are the reasons that people are drawn to you?
I tell the truth. I mean, I think that's the main reason, because I don't candy coat anything. And somebody asks me a question, if I know the answer and it's not going to offend everybody in the room, I'll tell the truth about it. If it's going to offend everybody in the room, I'll tell them, you're going to be offended at this, and then I'll tell it anyway. Uh, Acknowledge your mistakes and tell people when they make mistakes, tell them how to correct it. And I think those things, and I don't I don't see any other way to be a mentor or to be somebody that I don't really see myself as a leader in the beekeeping industry, because I'm just one of you guys. But I don't see any other way to interact with other beekeepers outside of being totally honest and not being afraid to acknowledge your mistakes, and being totally open with other beekeepers about how you got around these problems. Because I think that's why people people keep asking me to come speak at meetings, because I'm not afraid to say that I lost 40% of my bees one year, or and tell the reason why, and tell how to come back from that. And because you can. I mean, uh, it's more of an emotional hit than it is any other issue, but you can come back from it. So uh, I think that's why people kind of gravitate. I think it's not just me. I think they would gravitate to anybody that would have that sort of a philosophy.
Well, I can tell you the reason I am drawn to you is because you're so humble. And I will say that I have never yet found anyone who has anything but good things to say about you. So thank you for that.
Well, you just hadn't looked hard enough, I guess. But there's bound to be some people out there, but uh, and they may be right. I don't know. The ones that have something not good to say, I'm not gonna argue with them.
So, Kent, I know a lot of something else you do. You have a annual school that you host um, on your farm there in Western Kentucky. I haven't had a chance. I'm hoping to make it to next year. So I was going to try to make it this year, and unfortunately, I couldn't get my schedule to line up. So I'm going to try my best to be there next year. But when you're working with newer beekeepers, somebody thinking about getting into it, or it's their first year, what in your opinion, what's one of the most valuable lessons that you try to really imprint on the newer beekeepers that you work with?
Well, the first thing that I tell newer beekeepers is to not be intimidated by what you're being taught. Don't ever. I tell them, don't ever think that something is over your head, that instruction is over your head, because sooner or later you're going to see it in a beehive, and just take it all in, take all the instruction in, file it away for the day when you run across that. But don't ever think that even if you don't even have bees yet and you go to a beekeeping school, don't think that all these other people are at the level that you can't ever get to, or that all these other people are intermediate and advanced, and you're basic beginner, so you don't need to be learning what they're learning. No, you need to learn it all. You need to see everything. And the one thing that is most important for new beekeepers to learn is how to look at a frame and know what you're looking at, understand what's going on a frame of brood, and know how to fix the problems. That's the most important thing that a new beekeeper can learn. And some think that that's just way over their head. They're wanting to learn how to light a smoker. Don't Fire burns. You can light a smoker. Anybody, a kid can light a smoker, and a kid can learn. I've had 7 and 8 year old kids here at our beekeeping school that were just fabulous at looking at a frame. I mean, they just absorbed everything, and that's how everybody should respond to teaching in a hive, just like a little kid. Just absorb it all and file it away. And those are the most important things. And the next most important thing is to prepare yourself for the bad things that are coming, so that you won't just be in the depth of depression, when something that you think is catastrophic happens. I mean, outside of American foul brood, nothing's catastrophic. It's just a setback. So you learn how to get over those humps.
Great. Well, Kent, you've been keeping bees for, gosh, maybe almost half your life. What do you think makes a beekeeper, maybe we'll say a backyard beekeeper? Most of us who are listening to Buzz Across the Bluegrass, most of the Kentucky beekeepers were backyard beekeepers with, a minimal number of hives. What would you say makes a beekeeper successful beyond maybe honey production? What would you say makes a beekeeper successful?
Well, number one, honey production is just a product of a big hive, a big populous hive of bees at the right time when the forage is available, and putting enough honey supers on. But to get that big colony of bees, to make a beekeeper successful, you've got to learn how to grow bees quick, how to stimulate the queen, how to get you need the queen laying full bore 6 weeks ahead of when your main honey flow is going to be. That way you're guaranteed of having a full complement of foragers. If she's laying wide open 6 weeks before the honey flow, so it's 3 weeks as brood, as egg, larva, pupa, and then 3 weeks as the nurse bee. There's your 6 weeks. So you have that full complement of foragers that's prepared to collect, to get to bring in the honey flow, bring in the nectar. So that's what makes a successful beekeeper. A backyard, it doesn't matter if you're backyard, commercial, or who, you got to have a big hive of bees to make a big crop of honey. And likewise, you've got to have a big hive of bees if you're planning on raising bees and selling nukes. It takes a big hive of bees. If you're planning on raising queens and selling queens, it takes a big hive, a good queen that's laying wide open early in the season. You want a queen that starts early and don't quit. If you have to feed them, fine, feed them. But I mean, bees are livestock. You might want them to be pets, but they're not pets. They're livestock, and when your cattle need feeding, you got to feed them. So don't be afraid to do these things. Don't be afraid to do whatever it takes to keep your hive healthy. Healthy, queen right, started early, and a good queen that's laying full bore 6 weeks ahead of the honey flow, and you'll be successful. the rest of it falls into place.
I know we're all here, for the main topic being beekeeping, but do you have any fun facts or maybe something interesting about yourself unrelated to beekeeping that you might want to share with everybody listening?
All the most interesting stuff is things that are too embarrassing to share. But uh, yeah, my previous hobbies and entertainment didn't didn't reflect my later hobbies and entertainment. Probably the the one the one fun fact about me that I like the best is that I started school when I was 5 years old. I ran away the first day and refused to go back. And so they let me start the next year when I was 6. And the next year, I sat at the table across from this girl that had long black hair and big dark eyes. And I wrote her a note because I could read and write before I started school. I wrote her a note that said, "I love you. I hope you love me." I didn't know who she was, but I want to marry you, and gave it to her. She read it. She gave the note to her mom. And on our 20th anniversary, uh, her mom framed that note. We were king and queen of the first grade at the basketball homecoming, and she gave us. She framed that note and our king and queen picture, and gave it to us for our 20th anniversary. And July 31st will be our 48th anniversary.
Oh my gosh.
So
Oh,
that's the fun fact about me that I'm actually uh, happy to share.
that is a wonderful, wonderful story. And this is your wife, Valerie?
That's Valerie. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Well,
So first grade?
First day of first grade. Yeah.
Wow. That is a lifelong love. Boy,
well,
we all could have been so blessed as
congratulations
you are. Yes, it's
on
wonderful.
48. I know coming up here, July 11th will be 11 for my wife and I. We've been together since we were 16. So
Cool. That's
it's,
cool.
Yeah.
Hey,
Me and my husband are 30 something. He's much better at the dates than I am. It's maybe 33, maybe 34, but it's a long time. Yeah. But all right. Well, so Kent, you've had years and years of beekeeping and thousands of hives, and I can't imagine the number of beehives you've been in all your life, and all the knowledge that you have. What still surprises you or fascinates you about honeybees?
oh, there's so many things. I mean, that I can lose a day's work just watching bees in a hive and looking at a frame of bees and watching what they're doing, and because there's so many fascinating things, and especially when you start thinking about the mating process and um, the, even the pest, the parasites and pests with honeybees, how they mirror the honeybee in their reproduction and um, in their life cycle, and all of the things about a beehive are just fascinating. And when you see things going wrong in a beehive, uh, that just gives another level, brings another level of understanding to how the honeybees are handling these things. And I have been in a lot of beehives helping actual big commercial beekeepers, and it's been very rewarding. I mean, I'm incredibly blessed to know these guys, a lot of these guys, and have been able to incorporate some of their management. And most of what I do with bees, I learned working with them, with these four in particular, large beekeepers. And there's just no substitute for what you learn working with somebody that's willing to take time and show you how to do things like that, which is another reason that we have our bee school every year. But just the anatomy of a honeybee and the biology, the way a honeybee was created and how it, I mean, it's got these hairs on its leg to get the protein that they're going to have back to the hive from the plant, but they don't go foraging just for protein. They go foraging for nectar, get the pollen on them. And I mean, beekeeping is not just bees. If you're a beekeeper for very long, you almost become a botanist, you know, and because you're paying attention to all these blooms and your yard looks like a junkyard because there's all kind of stuff growing out there that you won't cut because bees are working it. And the bloom, a bloom does it. It's a liability for a bloom for a plant to produce nectar. It takes energy away from the plant. The plant can't use the nectar, but the nectar draws pollinators to that bloom. The pollinators go for the nectar, they get the pollen on them, and then they spread that pollen. And that's how the plants produce, the plants that need pollination, that's how they produce seed. And which is why self-fertile and plants or plants that have perfect blooms very seldom produce a honey crop. They don't have to make nectar. They have a bloom that actually has pollen that moves by itself by wind. I mean, tomatoes don't usually make a honey crop, but and some soybeans don't. But all of those things, everything about beekeeping interacts. It's all it all works together, and nature all works together, and that's what fascinates me is how nature is designed for one thing to work with another, and it makes the whole circle work. And honeybees are a very important part of that. Not just honeybees, but any pollinator. But honeybees are the only pollinator that you can move on a tractor trailer truck all the way across the country to pollinate a crop. So that's why they're so important.
Yeah. Ryan, I'll ask you the same question. I know you've been keeping bees a little bit. What fascinates you? A behavior, or what fascinates you about honeybees?
I'll have to share one of my downsides. And it wasn't necessarily within my control. We all know how Mother Nature can be. But this past winter, I had a tree come down, take two of my hives out, and it happened overnight. I found it the next day, and of course, it was I think right before the ice storm hit. It was right before or right after. But I went down there and tried to piece together what I could, and they were still. I mean, they put up a fight, and I was amazed that just the and just. I mean, I can't even put it into words. I fully expected to have a bunch of dead bees everywhere because tree took them out. They were open to the elements, and they had the wherewithal to fight me tooth and nail to put them back together. So I think that's one thing when I first got into beekeeping, especially like when I went the first day and picked my nukes up and all that. I was trying to be careful, not hit too many bumps and all that. I didn't want to hurt them or anything, and it's just they take a punch and they pop right back up. So that's something that's small. That's one thing I still find fascinating. Even 3-4 years later.
They're very resilient. Honeybees are so resilient. I've had bees that would have the lid blown off in a storm in the middle of the winter, and I may not catch it for 3 or 4 days that the lid blew off, and go out there and think I see the lid laying out in the field and think, well, they'll be dead, and they're not dead. They're all they're all kind of clustered up on the top of the frames, and somehow they can figure out how to survive.
Yeah.
I guess maybe them surviving us proves that they're pretty resilient.
One of my favorite behaviors of honeybees is when I'm catching a swarm and I've got, some of the bees and usually the queen inside the box. And I love watching the bees marching in and the bees on the landing board fanning their Nasanov, telling their sisters, this is where we're all congregating, everyone come this way. And I just love watching that march. I never get tired of that. And the other one I never get tired of, I'll stop no matter what. I don't care how busy I am or how overcommitted I am. If I see orientation flights, I don't know why. I just find them fascinating. Just the and I think we still don't know why they orient all at this, all at the same time. And but I love orientation flights as well. I don't know. They're fascinating.
I raise a lot of queens for our. There's two other guys that work with me, and a lot of what I do for this little trio of guys is raise queens, because I have a very dependable drone pool here in West Kentucky, and where the bees are on the Gulf Coast, there's a drone pool, but it's not dependable. It's not something we want to incorporate in our bees. So I raise the queens here, at least a good part of them here, and I love watching the hives. I mean, and if you're in the bees as much as I am, it's raising queens. As soon as you take the lid off of a mating nuke, if that virgin came back or not by the way the bees act, the way they sound. They just sound different, and there'll be some fanning their Nasanov gland, like you said, on top of the frames, and you just know she's not going to be in there. Likewise, you can go into a hive where that you have introduced a virgin queen, and you can't find any sign of a queen, but that there's one in there because of the way the bees act. So I've learned it. It took me a while to learn that and not put another queen in there just because I couldn't find any sign of one. It took me a little while to learn that, but I finally believed, I guess, that maybe the bees are a little bit smarter than I am about those things. And the way they act on the comb and all of those things just fascinate me.
Teresa, I'm going to go off script here, and we can go back and edit this out if we feel it's too controversial for this. But I'm always interested, especially with those, with wealth more of knowledge and experience than I. What is your typical rebuttal to when somebody says that honeybees are non-native species, and they fight, they overtake native pollinators, and them being here is kind of, I guess, an injustice, I guess you would say?
Well, do they eat bacon? These people eat bacon? There weren't any pigs here either until we brought them from Europe.
Sure.
So do they eat hamburgers? There weren't any cattle here until we brought them from Europe. I mean, sure, they may not be a native species. They may or may not. I'm not a researcher or a scientist. All I can do is just repeat what I read or hear. But they may not be a native species. So what? You want to go back to living in mud huts? I mean, that's how people lived here. Teepees, mud huts, thatch roof dwellings. Uh, it's not really any different than the argument about pesticides and ag chemicals, and you know, I suffer a lot from both of those issues. You know, with pesticide death and the reduction of forage is the big thing from ag chemicals. From what we had when I first started beekeeping, there's probably not 20% of the natural forage that there used to be when I first started beekeeping. So, you know, I understand all that, and I have kind of had to deal with it. And the thing is, you can't turn back the clock on history. So what if they're not a native species? What are you going to do? I mean, if you kill off all the honeybees, you're going to be left with about probably 1/3 of the pollinators that you have, and then what's going to happen? You know, that everything's going to suffer. So, you know, if you're anti-hamburger and anti-bacon, you can be an anti-honeybee, and I'll kind of accept that.
Well, Kent, we could talk to you for hours, and I personally can come up with like 5 more questions that I would like to ask you, but we should probably start thinking about wrapping up. But is there anything else that you would like to tell or share with the beekeepers of Kentucky?
Learn how to raise your own queens, even if you don't incorporate that into your management. Even if you're a backyard beekeeper, learn what it takes to raise a queen. Learn how to raise your own queens. Don't be afraid to do it. The queen you raise will be as good or better than one you'll buy. And learn everything that you can about it. Learn how to take one hive and turn it into 4 before the season's out, 4 that will go through the winter before the season's out. And you'll learn that you have to do that before mid-July, or it's not going to work that well for you. And learn all those things. You'll stay in business. And don't be afraid to feed your bees. But you'll stay in business if you can do those things. Don't be afraid to try new stuff that you hadn't done. And part of that new stuff that you haven't done, you might want to think about getting to the point that you can move your bees to a honey flow. If you don't have a good honey flow where you're located, or you know, we have a phenomenal honey flow here with canola, but there was over 30,000 acres of canola just in our county this past year, and every hive of bees in Kentucky could have been on that canola, and they would have all made a honey crop. Don't be afraid to move bees. Learn how to do it, and it's not as difficult as it seems. But once our canola's gone, we don't have a lot anymore. We used to have tulip poplar and black locust, but it's all been pushed out. It's row crop now. So once the canola's gone, we don't have a lot until July. And in July, we move the bees to the river bottoms and make honey off of the wild things in the river bottoms, like red vine and blue vine and wild cucumber, sometimes kudzu, very seldom, but occasionally soybeans, and then goldenrod in the fall. So our only dependable honey flow is when we move our bees 35 miles. Here at the house, we don't have it. We're feeding. And in Mississippi too, we're feeding the bees from July on until October, unless we move them up here to the river bottom. And it makes sense for us. And if it makes sense for us, it would also make sense for somebody with 2 or 3 hives to do that. And it's very easy to move them. I mean, put them on a 2-wheel trailer and go park it somewhere. That's the easiest way to do it. Learn how to do these things, and you can not only you'll not only find it really interesting and a really cool thing, but you'll make more honey and you will have better bees too.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kent. We've enjoyed every second of our time with you, and you are a blessing and a gift to Kentucky, and we're so fortunate to have you as part of our beekeeping community. Thank you so much for joining us.
We have our school in April, but we have people come here all the time. I've got a guy coming tomorrow that couldn't make it to the school, and he's coming because he wants to know how to make splits and how to raise queens. And that's what we're going to do. So anybody that's game to do things like that, they're welcome to come here. If I'm going to be home, come on.
Very good. Thank you so much, Kent.
This has been a KSBA original production.
If you would like your local club featured on a future episode intro, please send audio recordings to ksbapodcast@kybs.org.